Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer was once positioned as one of Hollywood's most promising stars, praised for her striking presence and sharp intellect. In 1936, she starred in Howard Hawks' adaptation of Come and Get It, alongside Edward Arnold and Joel McCrea, earning critical acclaim. But Farmer quickly became known for more than her performances. She openly criticized the Hollywood apparatus, refused stage publicity, and challenged Hollywood's rigid expectations. That defiance didn't sit well with studio executives. By the early 1940s, tensions boiled over. In October of 1942, Farmer was arrested for disorderly conduct after reportedly disobeying traffic signals and clashing with police, triggering a string of court-ordered psychiatric assessments. Her mental health struggles soon became public drama. She was first institutionalized in Los Angeles, then committed to Western State Hospital in Washington by 1944. What happened behind those hospital doors became the focus of decades of conjecture. In her 1972 autobiography, she described being stripped, forcibly medicated, and subjected to harsh treatments. Some biographers question the accuracy of certain claims, but the broader pattern of mistreatment remains well documented. One of the most persistent rumors, still circulating today, suggests she was lobotomized, though no medical records confirm it. Stories whisper of a darker reality buried under sealed files and sanitized reports. After years in and out of institutions, Farmer returned to public life in 1958 as the host of a local television program in Indianapolis. It signaled an understated return, far from the A-list spotlight she once occupied. Though she appeared in a few low-budget films, her Hollywood stardom never reignited. By the time Jessica Lange portrayed her in the 1982 biopic Frances, Farmer had become a symbol of rebellion, institutional abuse, and the high cost of nonconformity in mid-century Hollywood. She didn't simply vanish, she was driven away, and the industry never looked back. Dolores Hart. In 1963, Dolores Hart left Hollywood at the height of her fame, trading red carpets for a cloister. At just 24, she had starred in 10 films, including 2 opposite Elvis Presley, Loving You and King Creole, and was under contract with Paramount. She was also engaged to businessman Don Robinson. By industry standards, she was on a fast track to superstardom. Then, seemingly overnight, she abandoned it all and entered the Abbey of Regina Laudis in Bethlehem, Connecticut, becoming a Benedictine nun. Her decision shocked the public and the press. Buzz circulated, some suspected it was a publicity stunt, others murmured about a nervous breakdown, but Hart later clarified that the calling had been gradual, not sudden. In the Oscar-nominated documentary God is the Bigger Elvis, she described the spiritual pull as something she could no longer ignore. She said she had everything she thought she wanted, but it wasn't enough. While she never publicly expressed regret, the timing of her departure, right as her career was accelerating, continues to spark debate. Hart's exit wasn't just rare, it was unprecedented. Hollywood had seen actors fade or fall, but few had voluntarily vanished at their zenith. Some in the industry quietly hoped she'd return, assuming the convent was a temporary escape. It wasn't. Taking the name Mother Dolores, she committed fully to monastic life, eventually becoming prioress of the abbey and helping to establish its theater program. Her former fiancé never married, and the two remained close until his death in 2011. Though she stepped away from acting, Hart maintained a quiet connection to the arts. She served on the board of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and occasionally attended film events, but for the most part, she stayed out of public view. Her story resurfaced with the 2012 documentary's release, reframing her as a symbol of personal conviction rather than Hollywood's loss. Was it a spiritual calling, a quiet rebellion, or both? The mystery still lingers. Either way, Dolores Hart's departure remains one of the most unexpected exits in classic film history, proof that sometimes the most dramatic roles are the ones never played. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo was 36 when she departed Hollywood in December of 1941, following the lukewarm reception of Two-Faced Woman. Though the film turned a modest profit, it was a critical misfire, and a stark departure from her earlier triumphs. At the time, Garbo was one of the most lauded stars in cinema, with 4 Academy Award nominations and a reputation for unmatched screen presence. Her exit wasn't brief. She declined every revival proposal, including Alfred Hitchcock's reported interest in casting her for The Paradigm Case in 1947. She moved to New York City and vanished from the public stage, adopting a private life that only heightened her mystique. Biographer Barry Paris noted she refused interviews, scripts, and even major endorsements. One rumor claimed she turned down a multi-million-dollar perfume deal, just one of many tales that surrounded her hush. Some point to disenchantment with the studio system, while others whisper about personal heartbreak or a shifting Hollywood that no longer suited her style. Whatever the motive, Garbo's withdrawal wasn't merely a career decision. It became a cultural puzzle. In stepping away at her peak, she never dimmed. She became myth. Clara Bow. Clara Bow wasn't just a movie star. She was a cultural phenomenon. Dubbed the original It Girl, after her breakout in the 1927 film It, Bow became the face of the Roaring Twenties, with her flapper charisma and wide-eyed screen presence drawing massive crowds. At her peak, she was reportedly receiving tens of thousands of fan letters each month, a figure widely circulated in fan magazines of the era. But fame came at a steep cost. The arrival of sound and cinema exposed Bow's Brooklyn accent, and critics were quick to pounce. Though she starred in early talkies like The Wild Party in 1929, the shift rattled her confidence. Behind the scenes, she was battling intense anxiety, and the tabloid press relentlessly targeted her with rumors, some salacious, some absurd, about affairs, breakdowns, and scandals. In 1931, she suffered a mental health crisis and was briefly hospitalized. At the time, doctors diagnosed her with psychoneurosis. 2 years later, at just 28, she retired from film after completing Hoopla in 1933, which received modest attention as her final screen appearance. She retreated to a Nevada ranch with her husband, actor and politician Rex Bell, and gradually slipped out of the public eye. Though she never returned to acting, Bow made rare appearances and occasionally responded to fans. Some believe she withdrew to avoid the pressures of fame. Others suggest she feared another breakdown. Whatever the reason, her disappearance from Hollywood remains one of its most enigmatic exits. A star who wants to find an era, only to step away from it entirely. Annette Kellerman. In 1916, Annette Kellerman grabbed headlines with a daring act seldom seen in mainstream cinema, appearing nude in the opulent fantasy epic A Daughter of the Gods. Although she wasn't the first actress to appear unclothed on film, her scene was the most advertised of its day, and the production itself was billed as one of the costliest silent features ever created. Censors protested, moral guardians objected, and the resulting furor only boosted her fame. Yet Kellerman was no stranger to public backlash. Nearly a decade before, in 1907, she was apprehended on a Boston beach for donning a one-piece swimsuit that revealed her arms and legs, an act that directly defied the strict dress codes for women. Her steadfast stance transformed her into a cultural catalyst. By the mid-1910s, she was headlining vaudeville, setting swimming records and starring in silent films known for aquatic feats and choreographed displays. She even launched her own swimsuit line and authored fitness guides. Then, as Hollywood moved towards sound, Kellerman began to step away. Her screen appearances dwindled in the early 1920s, and while she never fully disappeared, she gradually removed herself from the limelight. Some believe she had grown dissatisfied with the film industry's trajectory, while others say she felt her point had been made. Eventually, she and her husband opened a health spa, and she settled in Australia years later. No headline scandal, no studio explosion, just a peaceful exit from stardom. Over time, her name slipped from general memory, especially after most of her films were lost. But in the 1970s and 80s, feminist scholars re-examined her impact, celebrating her as a pioneer of body autonomy in women's sports. Today, Annette Kellerman is remembered not merely for what she achieved on film, but for the moment she chose to step away. Deanna Durbin. In 1938, Deanna Durbin was just 17 and already among the highest-paid female stars worldwide. Her breakout role in Three Smart Girls 2 years prior had lifted Universal Pictures out of a financial slump, earning her the nickname the One-Woman Rescue Squad. That same year, she received a special Juvenile Academy Award alongside Mickey Rooney, cementing her status as Hollywood's Golden Girl. Durbin's wholesome image and operatic soprano voice made her a box office sensation, but she quickly became weary of the studio's formulaic roles. "I couldn't go on forever being Little Miss Fix-It who bursts into song," she once said. Efforts to shift her image with darker films like Christmas Holiday in 1944 garnered mixed responses. Her final film, For the Love of Mary, was released in 1948. Just 1 year later, at age 27, she left Hollywood altogether after marrying French director Charles David. She moved to a French village and declined all return offers, including one from MGM. For decades, her quiet withdrawal fueled speculation. Some even rumored she had died young. In a rare letter to film historian David Shipman in the 1980s, Durbin confirmed she was alive and had consciously chosen a private existence. Legend suggests she once compared stardom to life in a goldfish bowl. Whether myth or recollection, her exit remains among the most complete vanishings in Hollywood history. A star who didn't simply diminish, but disappeared by choice. Louise Rayner. Louise Rayner pulled off what no actor had done before, winning back-to-back Oscars for Best Actress in 1936 and 1937. At just 26, she became Hollywood royalty overnight, but by 1938 she had turned her back on it all. Her sudden departure from MGM and the industry sparked confusion and criticism. Some insiders murmured that she was difficult to work with. Others suspected she simply couldn't handle the pressure of fame. But Rayner herself blamed the studio system. She later described Hollywood as a machine that stifled creativity and turned actors into commodities. Speculation ran rampant that MGM had grown frustrated with her refusal to play the publicity game. Instead of chasing stardom, Rayner chose exile, relocating to Europe, marrying publisher Robert Knittel in 1945, and largely vanishing from the screen. She made only a handful of appearances over the next 6 decades, including a brief role in The Gambler in 1997. Legends tease that her retreat was less about burnout and more about rebellion, a quiet protest against the system she saw as hollow. When she died in 2014 at age 104, she was remembered not just for her Oscars, but for departing from the public arena when it was brightest. Margaret Sullivan. While many stars of the Golden Age scrambled to extend their screen time, Margaret Sullivan did the opposite. By the early 1940s, she had become one of Hollywood's most admired leading women, earning an Academy Award nomination for her role in Three Comrades in 1938, and delivering a standout performance in The Shop Around the Corner in 1940. But rather than chase bigger roles, she began stepping back. Some industry whispers claim she turned down the lead in Mrs. Miniver, later a career-defining role for Greer Garson, because she resisted being typecast as the virtuous, self-sacrificing wife. Others point to her well-known insistence on creative control, which often put her at odds with studio executives. She didn't disappear overnight, but her film appearances became increasingly rare after 1945, with just a handful of roles before her final screen credit in No Sad Songs for Me in 1950. Instead, she returned to Broadway, where she found more artistic freedom. Offstage, she faced mounting personal challenges, including a progressive hearing condition and ongoing mental health struggles. Her marriage to producer Leland Hayward, and earlier ties to Henry Fonda, added more complexity to her tightly guarded personal life. When she died in January 1960 at age 50, the cause was ruled a substance-related incident involving sleeping medication. Though officially accidental, some speculate it marked a final retreat from a world she had long resisted. Margaret Sullivan didn't just walk away from fame. She dismantled the narrative Hollywood tried to script for her. Eleanor Powell. By the late 1930s, Eleanor Powell was the undisputed queen of tap at MGM. Her explosive routines in films like Broadway Melody of 1936 and Born to Dance set a new bar for female dancers in Hollywood. Even Fred Astaire once called her the only woman who could outdance him. But despite dominating the musical genre, Powell's career faded almost as quickly as it rose. After starring in Sensations of 1945, she pulled back from the big screen, though not entirely from center stage. In the 1950s, she headlined shows at the Desert Inn in Las Vegas, and later hosted a religious television program called Faith of Our Children in Los Angeles. Officially, she cited faith and family as her focus, especially after marrying actor Glenn Ford in 1943. Still, others suggest Powell grew weary of being typecast in decorative roles, particularly as MGM began favoring newer faces. Rumors also swirl about comeback offers from major studios that she allegedly turned down, preferring independence over compromise. Whether it was burnout, disillusionment, or sheer defiance, Powell's decision to bow out at her zenith left fans wondering what heights she might have reached had she stayed in the Hollywood machine. Piper Laurie. In the mid-1950s, Piper Laurie made a move that stunned Hollywood insiders. She walked away from her Universal contract at the height of her rising fame. After starring alongside Tony Curtis in The Prince Who Was a Thief and Rock Hudson in Has Anybody Seen My Gal, Laurie was being groomed as one of the studio's most promising young stars. But she wasn't buying the dream. The roles, she later said, were shallow, ornamental, and creatively stifling. Rather than coast on studio momentum, she left Los Angeles for New York, trading red carpets for rehearsal rooms. For several years, Laurie focused on theater and television, effectively vanishing from the cinema scene. Then came 1961. Her return in The Hustler as the emotionally fragile Sarah Packard opposite Paul Newman earned her an Academy Award nomination and a wave of critical acclaim. Yet instead of capitalizing on the momentum, Laurie once again stepped back. Offers rolled in, but she declined most of them, citing the same lack of substance that had driven her away before. She continued working in television and on stage, but avoided major film roles for over a decade. Laurie spoke openly about the industry's gender dynamics, describing how actresses were often treated as accessories rather than artists. "I didn't want to be a movie star," she famously said. "I wanted to be an actress." That distinction defined her career and her absences. By 1976, Laurie made a thunderous return to feature films with her role as the fanatical mother in Brian De Palma's Carrie. The performance earned her a second Oscar nomination and reintroduced her to a new generation of viewers. Still, the long gaps in her filmography left critics wondering what might have been. Some speculate that, had she stayed in the studio system, Laurie's career could have rivaled that of Joanne Woodward or Anne Bancroft. But Laurie never chased stardom. She chased meaning. And when she didn't find it, she left it behind. Twice. Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy. By the late 1930s, Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy had become MGM's golden operatic duo, headlining 8 musicals that drew massive audiences. Films like Rosemarie and Maytime turned them into cultural fixtures, their voices and on-screen chemistry rivaling even the studio's top-tier stars. But as the 1940s closed, the spotlight dimmed. MacDonald's final film, The Sun Comes Up, hit theaters in 1949. Eddy's last leading role came earlier, in Northwest Outpost from 1947. There was no grand farewell, just a low-key departure from Hollywood features. Instead of clinging to the studio system, both pivoted. MacDonald embraced the concert stage, touring internationally with classical recitals, while Eddy refocused on radio, private performances, and eventually choral direction. Some fans never stopped hoping for a film reunion, and whispers circulated that MGM floated revival projects in the late 1940s. But nothing materialized. What kept them apart? That's where things get murky. Legends tease a secret romance, with some biographers claiming their bond went far beyond scripted duets. One particularly persistent rumor suggests MacDonald's 1937 marriage to actor Gene Raymond was orchestrated to bury the gossip. Others speculate that MGM's infamous micromanagement, especially under Louis B. Mayer, played a role in keeping the two apart, both on and off screen. Neither MacDonald nor Eddy ever confirmed or denied the stories. Their silence only fueled the mystique. As one film historian put it, they became legends not just for their performances, but for their refusal to return. In an era when stars were expected to shine until the very end, MacDonald and Eddy stepped away on their own terms, leaving behind a legacy wrapped in talent, timing, and just enough mystery to keep the spotlight chasing them long after they were gone. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.